Hello there and welcome. Tonight we're talking about Poland. Yes, Poland. A country that, for many, brings to mind three things: pierogi, Pope John Paul II, and a history so tragic it makes a Russian novel look like a children's pop-up book. But Poland today is a fascinating, complex, and rapidly changing nation that deserves a closer look. So we're going to put it under the microscope, or more accurately, next to a series of increasingly intimidating bar charts, to see how it stacks up against the rest of Europe. Think of it as a European family reunion, where Poland is the cousin who used to be quiet and awkward, but now shows up with a surprisingly good job, a new car, and an unnervingly large collection of military hardware. We'll be diving into 5 key areas that paint a picture of modern Poland. First, its military, which, and this is not a joke, is becoming something of a European powerhouse. Then we'll look at its economy, which has been growing with the kind of relentless energy usually reserved for a toddler who's just discovered sugar. After that, we'll examine its healthcare system, which is, well, let's just say it's complicated. We'll also break down earnings, because while money can't buy happiness, it can buy a lot of pierogi, which is basically the same thing. And finally, we'll tackle the big fuzzy concept of quality of life to see if Poles are actually, happy. So get comfortable, this isn't going to be a deep soul-searching documentary. No, think of this as a high-speed, fact-blitzing tour of a country that's punching well above its weight. We'll be throwing a lot of data at you, but I promise to make it as digestible as a perfectly boiled potato dumpling. We're going to look at the good, the bad, and the statistically average of Poland's place in the 21st century European landscape. Let's get into it. Right, let's start with the big one, the military. For most of its history, Poland's primary military strategy has been get invaded. It's been partitioned, occupied, and generally treated like a continental doormat. But it seems Poland has decided quite emphatically, never again. Because today, Poland's military isn't just strong, it's becoming formidable. According to the Global Firepower Index, Poland now has the 7th strongest military in Europe. That's right, 7th. They're ahead of countries like Spain and just behind Italy, which is impressive considering Italy's main defense strategy seems to be too charming to invade. Poland is taking its security very, very seriously. And frankly, when your next-door neighbor is Russia, being a little paranoid isn't paranoia, it's just good sense. And it's not just about rankings, it's about boots on the ground and money in the bank. Poland now has the largest standing army in the entire European Union. Yes, you heard that correctly. More active soldiers than Germany, more than France, more than anyone. They're building an army so large you'd think they're expecting an imminent orc invasion, and they're paying for it. Poland is currently spending the highest share of its GDP on defense in all of NATO, over 4%. To put that in perspective, the NATO target is 2%, a target that some countries treat less like a requirement and more like a gentle, easily ignored suggestion. Poland is treating it like the bare minimum before they start buying aircraft carriers for their lakes. This isn't just about numbers, it's a fundamental shift in the European security landscape. While some of its neighbors are cutting defense budgets, Poland is on a shopping spree, buying hundreds of American Abrams tanks, Korean K-2 tanks, and HIMARS rocket systems. They are effectively becoming NATO's Eastern Shield. They are the bouncers standing at the door of Eastern Europe, cracking their knuckles and looking pointedly at anyone who might be thinking of starting trouble. So when it comes to defense and security, Poland isn't just in the conversation. In many ways, it's leading it. They've gone from being a security consumer to a major security provider, and that is a truly staggering transformation. Now, let's talk about money, because you can't afford all those fancy tanks without a robust economy, unless you're using a magical credit card, which, to be fair, is how most governments seem to operate. But Poland's economic story is genuinely remarkable. For decades behind the Iron Curtain, it was an economic basket case. Now, it's one of Europe's great success stories. The Polish economy has been growing at a pace that makes the rest of the continent look like it's running in slow motion. It's the 6th largest economy in the European Union, contributing a significant chunk to the bloc's overall GDP. It has become an absolute engine of growth in Central Europe. Now let's be clear, it's not all champagne and caviar just yet. If you look at GDP per capita, a fancy way of saying how much stuff the average person produces, Poland is still below the EU average. It's hovering around 80% of the mean, meaning it's not quite at the level of Germany or the Netherlands, where the streets are seemingly paved with high-efficiency light bulbs and artisanal cheese. But, and this is the crucial part, that gap is closing, and it's closing fast. The trajectory is what matters here. Poland's economy isn't just growing, it's converging with its wealthier Western neighbors at a speed that is both impressive and, for some of its competitors, probably a little bit terrifying. And one of the brightest spots in this economic picture is unemployment. Poland boasts one of the lowest unemployment rates in the entire EU, often dipping below 3%. That is an astonishingly low figure. It's the kind of number that makes economists in other countries weep with envy. It means that if you want a job in Poland, you can probably find one, which is more than can be said for many other parts of Europe. This combination of strong, consistent growth and a tight labor market shows that Poland's economic fundamentals are incredibly solid. It's no longer just Europe's workshop, it's becoming a diversified modern economy that is a core part of the continent's success. Alright, so Poland has a strong army and a booming economy. But what happens if one of those soldiers gets a hernia, or an office worker gets a particularly nasty paper cut? Let's talk about healthcare. And this is where the picture gets a little less rosy. It's like a checkup where the doctor says, well, your heart is strong, but you've got this weird rash we need to talk about. Poland's healthcare system is, to put it politely, underfunded compared to its Western European counterparts. The country's spending on healthcare, both as a percentage of GDP and per capita, consistently lags behind the EU average. And as we all know, when it comes to healthcare, you often get what you pay for. This underinvestment has real-world consequences. If you look at health outcomes, Poland is still playing catch-up. Life expectancy, for instance, is about 3 to 4 years lower than the EU average. That's a significant gap. It's the difference between seeing your grandchild graduate from university and seeing them graduate from high school. Key indicators like preventable mortality are also higher than in many other EU nations. This suggests that while the system is functional, it's not as effective at preventing and treating illnesses as the better-funded systems in countries like Sweden or France, where people seem to live to be 150 and subsist entirely on red wine and existential dread. However, it's not all bad news. There is a surprising silver lining here. When it comes to hospital infrastructure, Poland actually does quite well in one specific metric: hospital beds. The country has a higher number of hospital beds per 1,000 people than the EU average, so while the system might be stretched thin financially, there is, at least on paper, a bed for you if you get sick. It's a strange paradox. The infrastructure is there, but the funding and outcomes haven't quite caught up yet. It paints a picture of a system with good bones, but in desperate need of more resources to truly serve its people at a modern European standard. It's a system under strain, a B- student in a class full of A's. So, you've got a job in Poland's low unemployment economy. Fantastic! But what are you actually taking home? Let's talk about earnings. This is where the reality of Poland's position as a converging economy really hits home. The straight truth is that average and median earnings in Poland are significantly lower than in Western Europe. If you compare a Polish salary to a German, Dutch, or Danish one, it's going to look pretty modest. You're not going to be buying a private yacht on a typical Warsaw salary unless that yacht is an inflatable pool toy. This is the trade-off for an economy that has grown so fast from a much lower starting point. But, and this is a but the size of a bison, context is everything. While Polish wages might look low from a distance, you have to place them on the proper map. Compared to most of its Eastern and Central European peers, Poland is doing quite well. Earnings there are generally higher than in countries like Hungary, Romania, or even its neighbor, the Czech Republic, in some metrics. So it occupies this middle ground, not quite at the Western European level, but comfortably leading the pack in its own region. It's like being the best player in the minor leagues. You're not in the big show yet, but you're dominating where you are. And here is the crucial piece of the puzzle that makes it all work: the cost of living. A lower salary doesn't feel so low when everything from your rent to your dinner costs less. The cost of living in Poland is substantially lower than in the West. That euro, or rather zloty, in your pocket simply stretches further. Groceries, public transport, and especially housing are all more affordable. So while you may not be earning a German salary, you're also not paying Munich rent, which could otherwise require you to sell a kidney just to afford a studio apartment overlooking a dumpster. This balance is key to understanding the Polish standard of living. The numbers on the paycheck are only half the story. We've covered tanks, money, and hospital beds, but all of that is meaningless if everyone is miserable. So, the final most important question is, what is the quality of life actually like in Poland? How do people feel about their lives? According to global rankings like the one from US News and World Report, Poland sits firmly in the middle of the pack, ranking around 35th globally. That's not a spectacular top-of-the-charts result like you'd see in Scandinavia, where happiness is seemingly a mandatory state-sponsored emotion, but it's a solid, respectable performance, placing it ahead of many other countries around the world. It's a comfortable B-plus kind of happiness. Where Poland really shines, however, is in less tangible metrics. A fascinating study from Sapien Labs looked at the mental well-being of populations, and Poland scored surprisingly high in what they call social cohesion and flourishing. This suggests that Poles feel a strong connection to their communities and have a positive outlook on their personal development and future. It points to a society with strong family ties and a sense of collective identity, which act as a powerful buffer against life's difficulties. This isn't something you can easily measure with GDP, but it's a vital component of a good life. It's the feeling that you're part of something, that people have your back. And this is especially true for one particular group, young people. Poland consistently ranks as one of the best countries in the world for young adults to live in. Yes, you read that right. A combination of good education, a dynamic job market, safety and affordability makes it an incredibly attractive place for those just starting out. While their parents and grandparents lived through immense hardship, the new generation is experiencing a Poland that is secure, prosperous, and full of opportunity. They are the first generation in centuries to grow up without the shadow of imminent existential threat, and that freedom is translating into a vibrant, optimistic quality of life that is reshaping the nation from the ground up. So, what have we learned? We've learned that modern Poland is a country of fascinating contrasts. On one hand, it has emerged as an absolute leader in security and defense, building a military that commands respect across the continent. Its economic growth has been nothing short of miraculous, transforming it from a post-communist state into a vital engine of the European economy. In these areas, Poland isn't just catching up, it's setting the pace. It has built a foundation of security and prosperity that would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago, proving itself to be a true European powerhouse in the making. Of course, the picture isn't perfect. As we saw, its healthcare system is still straining under the weight of underfunding, and health outcomes have yet to reach Western European standards. Incomes, while rising, still have a long way to go to match those in the wealthiest EU nations. These are significant challenges, and they show that Poland's journey is far from over. It's the story of a nation that has sprinted for 30 years and is now facing the tough, grinding work of refining its institutions and ensuring the benefits of its growth are felt by every single citizen, not just in their job prospects, but in their clinics and in their bank accounts. But when you step back and look at the complete picture, Poland stands out as a remarkable success story. It offers a unique proposition in Europe, a strong middle ground performer. It may not have the highest salaries or the best hospitals, but it compensates with a lower cost of living, a powerful sense of social cohesion, and a palpable feeling of optimism, especially among its youth. It is safer, wealthier, and more confident than at any point in its modern history. Poland is no longer just a place on the map between Germany and Russia. It is a destination, a power player, and one of the most dynamic and important countries in 21st century Europe. Thank you for watching.